This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News. I'm Sophie Ikenye. Our top stories. Where are we all from? Scientists claim Botswana is the birthplace of modern humans. Tens of thousands are displaced as several countries from Somalia to South Africa are hit by heavy rains and floods. A mother's promise, the Sudanese woman seeking justice for her son killed in protests in 2013.
I promised to him before they took his coffin from the house, Hazza, I swear by God, either I get you justice or I die like you.
Also in the program, Making It Easy. Meet the brains competing to find the best digital hacks for life and business. And in sports, Cape Town wins rights to host the 2022 Rugby Sevens World Cup, the first time the tournament will be held in Africa. Well, thanks for joining us on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. A group of scientists is claiming to have located the original ancestral homeland of modern humans in what could be a major discovery, shedding light on the shared heritage of every person on the planet. Now, they think that modern man and woman comes from an area south of the Zambezi Basin in northern Botswana. They claim our ancestors settled there near Africa's huge lake system that's known as Magadi, which is now dominated by salt pans. Now, writing in the journal Nature, the scientists traced back the human family tree using hundreds of samples of mitochondrial DNA. Now, these are scraps of DNA passed down the maternal line from mother to child from living Africans. But while they say the area was a thriving home to Homo sapiens 200,000 years ago, other scientists say the findings are problematic. Well, earlier I spoke to Professor Rebecca Ackerman from Cape Town University. She explained why.
They took mitochondrial DNA across a wide range of people. It was mostly people of Khoisan descent in the Cape and also in Namibia. And these are living people. And then they also looked at the mitochondrial DNA of a wide database of other Africans and others as well. To contextualize that. And they did a number of analyses, and what they were able to do is kind of put a tree to it. So what groups of people are more closely related to others, and then on and on and on, and so that you could then get a sort of deep time connection, an ancestor, if you will, and then put a date on it. This is a common thing in modern genetic studies for looking at ancestral lineages of this DNA. And so most people take DNA, if they're going to do this sort of thing, from a much wider array of areas on the genome to try to understand ancestry.
That's quite fascinating, Professor, what you say. So in your opinion, what was missing in this particular research and discovery?
And they're missing a lot. They're missing what the rest of the genome tells us. We know from studies of Y chromosomes, they'll link back to West Africa. We know from studies of autosomes that we've got deep human ancestry that has influx of genes from deep lineages in Africa, from lineages outside of Africa, from Neanderthals, from Denisovans. So we actually know from the science of the genetic science, so what they were doing, that the history of human evolution and the origins of our species is incredibly complex, and it's been going on for hundreds of thousands of years in a Pan-African sense, so across Africa, and also to a certain extent of input from outside of Africa. So what they were doing was kind of throwing us back 20 years to the way that this research used to be done without taking into account all of the changes in how we try to understand human evolution. In addition to that, they didn't look at the fossil record. And we have fossils of modern humans, of people who look like us, all over Africa. 300,000 years ago, we have them in Morocco. 200,000 years ago, we have them in East Africa and in South Africa. So again, the fossils and the archaeology support this being a much richer kind of Pan-African plus emergence of modern people, which makes sense if you think about, how diverse we are and how different we are.
So multiple locations possibly. Now, I'm just curious, Professor, why are we so competitive about where people have originated from, and why is it so important?
Yeah, there's a history in paleoanthropology and in human origins researchers generally of people wanting to be the first, to find the first or the best or this or that. And it's frankly problematic, and I think that's what these people are kind of missing. And it also makes for sexy science, right? You'll get in your Nature paper if you can, really punch it up that way. When the reality is that our understanding of how we are and how we've evolved is, again, much more complex and probably less sexy in some respects, but certainly much more interesting from a scientific perspective.
Professor Rebecca Ackerman there. Let's now take a quick look at other stories making headlines across Africa and the rest of the world. The boss of the American aircraft manufacturer Boeing has given evidence at a congressional hearing about the company's troubled 737 MAX plane. This was the first time Dennis Muhlenberg was questioned by the senators since the plane was involved in 2 fatal crashes within the space of 5 months, the second in Ethiopia. The relatives of some of the more than 300 people killed in the crashes were in attendance, and he started by addressing them.
On behalf of myself and the Boeing Company, we are sorry, deeply and truly sorry. But no number other than 0 accidents is ever acceptable. We can and must do better. We've been challenged and changed by these accidents. We've made mistakes, and we got some things wrong. We're improving, and we're learning, and we're continuing to learn.
At least 14 people have been confirmed dead and over 40 others trapped underground following a mudslide that followed torrential rains Monday night in Cameroon's west regional capital, Bafoussam. Dozens of homes have been affected and rescue workers are searching for survivors. Authorities say most of the houses affected were built on hilly ground and the heavy rains may have caused the ground to give way. The Lebanese Prime Minister Saad Hariri has announced his resignation as anti-government protests continue. Mr. Hariri said he had reached a dead end. He's called on all political parties to recognize their responsibility to protect Lebanon. Ahead of his speech, there were clashes in the center of Beirut as supporters of the Shia groups Hezbollah and Amal tried to break up protests and unblock roads. Now, a swathe of countries across the continent are struggling with the effects of heavy rains and flooding, which have displaced many thousands of people. In Somalia, at least 10 people have been killed and an estimated 50,000 people displaced. The Prime Minister has announced a national disaster committee to help those affected. Now, in South Sudan, almost 1 million people are thought to have been affected by severe flooding since July, and there are growing fears of a health crisis. The Central African Republic is currently experiencing the worst flooding in 2 decades, which has left 28,000 people homeless. Now, millions of Kenyans in the northeast who faced drought and starvation earlier this year are now struggling to cope with floodwaters that have destroyed their crops and contaminated clean water sources. And parts of South Africa, including Cape Town, have been hit by severe flooding that forced slum dwellers to abandon their shacks and left roads and footpaths waterlogged. Well, the BBC's Mercy Juma joins us now from Nairobi. Mercy, there are various countries that have been affected by floods. How unusual is this at this time?
Now, Sophie, first of all, this is the rainy season in all these countries, so the rains are expected. The only difference is the severity and the intensity of the rainfall. It's been raining really, really heavily, even in Nairobi where we are. And scientists attribute this kind of weather pattern or the climate to what is called the Indian Ocean Dipole. And basically, this is just about the temperatures in the Indian Ocean. If you divide the Indian Ocean into 2, the Western Indian Ocean and the Eastern Indian Ocean, and then they look at the difference in temperatures between these 2 regions. If it varies greatly, they call it the positive Indian Ocean Dipole, and it causes a lot of precipitation, a lot of evaporation, leading to a lot of rainfall. And that is what we have right now. And a reverse, or the reverse of that is the negative Indian Ocean Dipole, and that was attributed to, if you can remember, the 2017 drought that happened in Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, and Somalia. So if the difference in temperatures is high in the Indian Ocean, then they attribute that to the kind of floods and the kind of rainfall that you're having. But if it is low, then we get the droughts like we did in 2017. So yes, the rains are expected, but they have been so heavy in all these countries.
So heavy in these countries, Mercy. What has the response been to these kind of disasters, so to speak?
Now, sadly to put it bad, the response has been kind of, a knee-jerk reaction. Right now, we are seeing governments and humanitarian agencies trying to evacuate people from the flooded areas, trying to give relief food, trying to give medicine and all that. But if you look at a place like Turkana in northern Kenya, this is a place that, for a long time and the major part of the year, there have been severe drought. People have been dying from hunger. And then all of a sudden now we have the floods and boreholes are being washed away. And now the danger is that people do not have drinking water. And there are fears of, diseases like cholera breaking out. So the reaction year in, year out has been knee-jerk, just evacuating people, giving them aid. And then, the cycle continues. There will be droughts again and then floods again. And still, that's what the governments will be doing. That's what humanitarian agencies will be doing. Nothing long-term, just short-term knee-jerk reactions.
All right then, Mercy Juma for us there in Nairobi. Thank you. Now, in September 2013, Ahlam Kidir's son was killed in a peaceful protest against Sudan's government. She refused to give up her fight for justice despite facing security restrictions by her former president Omar al-Bashir's regime. Now, Mr. Bashir was eventually toppled in a military coup in April after 30 years in power. Ahlam was part of the protest movement that pushed for regime change, and she's still waiting for justice over her son's killing.
As soon as my son's coffin left, I announced a total rebellion. I promised him, before they took his coffin from the house, before his burial, I promised him and I said, Hazza, I swear by God, and for as long as I live, I will not forfeit your rights. Either I get you justice or I die like you. I insisted to continue because Sudan does not belong to one person. It's for all Sudanese, and every Sudanese should get their rights. We will join you again. We are with the youth. I appeared as a woman from the street. I am a revolutionary in the street. I am with the revolutionaries. But political activism is not something that interests me. When I see the youth in the streets, I am both happy and sad at the same time. I feel happy that the young people are conscious and demanding their rights. But at the same time, I fear that their destiny would be similar to all those who were lost in September 2013. My feeling when al-Bashir was toppled, I can hardly describe my feelings. I was so happy that I forgot all my sadness. I felt the promise that I made to Hazza had been fulfilled.
This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News. Still to come, all the sports, excited but under pressure. South Africa prepares for the Rugby World Cup final against England on Saturday. I'm Sophie Ikenye and you're watching Focus on Africa from BBC World News. The top stories on this program: scientists claim to have pinpointed the ancestral homeland of all humans alive today in Botswana. Several countries from Somalia to South Africa are grappling with the effects of flooding that has displaced tens of thousands of people. Now, we all love a life hack, a fast and efficient way to get around everyday problems. Now, there are examples everywhere on the internet, like the quickest way to change a tire or to peel a bulb of garlic. It's no wonder then that the business world is getting on board to find digital hacks as a way to improve productivity. And that's why a group of young data scientists from Kenya and South Africa have been meeting for a so-called hackathon. That's a challenge to come up with the best digital shortcuts for life and business. The BBC's Peter Mwangangi reports from Nairobi.
If you do it traditionally, you would need to program in each and every solution explicitly for each data point. So if you do it using other methods, it will take you much more time, and you would need many more resources. But if you use artificial intelligence, you need very few instructions of programming just to get the same results.
The Hackathon Challenge was hosted by data science competition platform Zindi Africa and Insight to Impact.
For me as an analyst, it brings me together with a community of other data scientists or data analysis, or people who want to venture into data science and people already experts. So at least with that, I can be able to grow and also network with them and also get to mainly solve challenges.
Currently, many companies are using data in making business decisions. So there's a lot of demand for data scientists and machine learning engineers. But then unfortunately, the market does not have these skills in the market. So there exists a very big skills gap in the market. And forums like this one, like of today, is really helping bridge this gap.
Where else can artificial intelligence be applied in our day-to-day lives?
The same solutions that we are providing today can be taken and transferred to other domains like healthcare, like education. So it does not really segregate the industry. It's just about tweaking a few parameters in the solution that you're creating, and then it can adapt to any industry.
The winning ideas from this challenge focused on creating efficiency in the delivery of goods to clients in terms of cutting down the cost of doing business, enhancing customer communication and experience. Peter Mwangangi, BBC, Nairobi.
You're watching BBC Focus on Africa. Let's find out what's happening in the world of sport, Peter.
Many thanks, Sophie. Now, Cape Town in South Africa has been named as the host city for the next Rugby Sevens World Cup. It's the first time the tournament will be held in Africa. The global showpiece for the shorter, faster seven-a-side version of Rugby Union will take place in September 2022. There will be 24 teams in the men's game and 16 in the women's. The last event included Uganda, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Chile, Brazil, and Hong Kong. Now, talking of Rugby Union, the build-up to the World Cup final in Japan is getting going in earnest. Both South Africa and England have been giving news conferences. South Africa coach Rassie Erasmus says he's excited but is feeling the pressure as he leads his side into the final on Saturday. Erasmus says he's unable to change his side too much going into the final, and other than Cheslin Kolb returning to the starting 23, he doesn't have enough time to tinker with the squad selection or tactics. He also believes England head coach Eddie Jones has the upper hand, having coached both Australia and South Africa in the World Cup finals.
So, no, the pressure is on. We feel the pressure. We're excited, but we feel the pressure, and we found our ways to handle it and try to work around it. And they would have the upper hand in terms of Eddie's experience of both being with South Africa and being with Australia. But, you know, we've tried to find our own ways how to handle that, and so far, so good. But certainly Saturday will be a big test for us to see if we can go that last step.
Football now, and Kenya's two-leg Olympic qualifier against Zambia hangs in the balance after Football Kenya Federation announced today it had disbanded the team's camp due to a lack of funds. The first leg is scheduled for November 4th in Nairobi, with the return leg in Lusaka, Zambia 4 days later. This is the last stage of the long qualification journey, with the aggregate winner earning a ticket to grace the 2020 Olympics set for Japan. According to FKF boss, they applied for $3.4 million in funding in 2018, but the government is yet to release the sum.
The issue is that we have a problem around national teams. We have applied for funding from the government as required by the President and by the Act. We have been patient for a year for the girls, and we think there's a problem. The PS has simply refused to fund these girls. Now today, the girls were supposed to go into camp for the qualifier against Zambia, and we've had simply to cancel it because we can no longer take more debt, and we don't have money to put them in camp, and there's no need to lie to them anymore.
Now, concerns have been raised about the new FIFA Club World Cup set for June-July in 2021. It means it could be the end of the Africa Cup of Nations in its current form. The Nations Cup has only just moved to those months from January, February, because the Confederation of African Football wanted to avoid club versus country clashes. But the move of the Club World Cup to a bigger 3-week event, albeit every 4 years, threatens its new timing. So is CAF looking into this? Kurt Okraku is the new head of Ghana's Football Association.
There are quite a number of issues that, as a body, we have to take a look at, including what you've just said. We are yet to meet. This body, our new leadership, will be meeting the next few days, and we're going to take critical decisions that will affect not only the question you asked, but many others that are currently lying on our tables.
When will the Ghana Premier League resume?
Everybody is yearning to see our leagues back, not only the Premier League, Women's League, Coast Football, Beach Soccer, Futsal, Division 1 League, 2nd Division, 3rd Division, across the country. I'm sure that when the Executive Council meets in the next few days, that will be the first topic we're going to look at, and hopefully we should be able to bring back the league sooner, so to say, than later.
That's Kurt Okraku, and he was speaking to the BBC's Thomas Nadi. Sophie, that's you up to speed with your sport.
Thank you very much indeed, Peter. Thank you. Now, when it comes to the search for love, the old-fashioned way of meeting face-to-face seems all but gone. But not here in the UK, where some young Muslims are turning to speed dating. They say they like the idea of meeting people of their own faith in real life. Anissa Kadri from the BBC's Asian Network joined a speed dating event in London.
3 minutes to make an impression. That's how long you get with each person before it's time to rotate at this speed dating event for young Muslims.
Yeah, there's definitely many different types of Muslims. So for me, it'd be very important to ask questions like your boundaries in terms of having a relationship. It'd be important to know their personal connection with God, if they pray or not, if they're practicing, if they're not practicing. All information that's quite important to help me decide what type of person.
We've just got 2 more ladies. The organisers say the event at a London cafe is alcohol-free, in line with the religion's beliefs.
I think real life meets for us was like the biggest draw. That there are ways, there are apps now, there are so many different platforms to meet people and for Muslims and other faiths, but it was the real possibility of being able to meet people in real life, have authentic connection, and have the choice and the options to which sometimes Muslims might not have that access to.
For the people who've come to this Islamic speed dating event, they say it's a chance for them to meet someone on their own terms.
You know, you never know, one introduction could lead to another, and yeah, just taking it as it is. You know,
I would like someone that's Muslim, but it's not necessarily a deal breaker. If they're open to how I am, then I'm quite open to how they are.
As for whether there's love in the air here, well, the organisers tell us there were some matches. Anissa Kadri, BBC News in London.
Well, don't forget you can get in touch with me and some of the team on social media. I'm at Kenya. That's Focus on Africa for now. Thanks for your company.